Welcome to the Diary of an Apartment Investor podcast. I'm your host, Brian Briscoe with Streamline Capital. Very excited for today's show. We've got none other than Sharon Riddle on the line with us today. So, Sharon, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Brian. I'm happy to be here with you today.
Very happy to have you. And for those listening, we talked a little bit about her experience. She's been doing real estate of some form or another for, 20 years. So, Sharon, I'm excited to hear, the wealth of experience, what you've learned, and all the other fun stuff. But, let's start out with talking a little bit about you. Where'd you come from and how'd you get into real estate in general?
Well, I am a third generation native Texan. And how all of this came about is my spouse, who is my business partner.
Mm-hmm.
An interesting scenario there.
Yeah.
But he was looking for something that would be a second stream of income and possibly a W-2 job replacement for him. And he's in aerospace, so he is a well-paid person in his field of expertise. And so that's what we were looking for. So way back in 2005, I still had my financial analyst and then later a business analyst job. So I was also in the W-2. But way back in 2005, that's where my real estate journey begins.
Nice.
We sought out a coach. And I love to have coaches and I love to have mentors. And you already know that.
Yep, absolutely.
And we found the Russ Whitney organization way back in that day. And we had coaches that taught us different types of real estate. So they might be single family, they might be flipping, wholesaling, things of that nature. We thought we were going to be flipping some single family property in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, which is where we're based in Denton. But, everything was tightened a little bit. And especially by 2008.
Yes. I was curious, on the edge of my seat waiting. When you said 2005, I'm like, oh, I know what's coming.
Oh, everybody who hears that date, they're like, oh, 2008 is going to be around the corner, Sharon. How'd you do?
The only thing worse than starting in 2005 is to do what I did and start in 2007. So,
oh, yeah. That's tough.
So,
Brian.
But go ahead.
Had a little runway. So we'd successfully had some single families that we had bought with loans, but credit was tightening, and certainly Chase did not want to loan on any real estate investments. And so what I had a coach in my back pocket. It was Al Calgill, and he worked with people who wanted to have private lenders. So I went to a boot camp, San Antonio, Texas. Dan went with me. So did our daughter, who was younger at that time, hanging out with us in San Antonio. And we went to his boot camp to learn how to work with private lenders. Well, then we ended up having people become the bank for us. Like my neighbor down the street, who was a nurse and had rental property, so she understood the concept. My father-in-law, he was on board. That kind of shocked all of us, but projects. We had a friend who was a IT professional. He's like, oh yeah, I can be the bank. I can do that. I understand this. His neighbor, it just kind of grew all our network, and people really understood the concept. Well, that helped us expand the portfolio, bridge that time period. And we had people who were very happy with us. They went from project to project. However, what we found is that really with the market acceleration, the price points of single family homes in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, we could not scale enough properties to retire Dan at that point in time out of Boeing. And so we ended up doing a pivot. In 2015, we found Brad Sumrock through a coach in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, Dennis Henson. It's always valuable to know people. So gotta network, and know a lot of coaches. So, and we found Brad, and he was in the DFW area at that time, and he had come off as a coach with lifestyle. So he'd been with Dale Walmsley's organization. And he was successful in multifamily investing.
He's got the fancy watch. I like fancy watches. I'll be honest. I don't have very many of them, but he's always wearing a watch that I wish I had, and driving nice cars.
He's just kind of into some
Yeah.
watches and some shoes. He has his certain things that
Hmm.
that kind of bring him joy, and they're a
Yeah.
little bling to him. I'm a little more, keyed down
Yeah.
versus Brad, but he's got his exotic car with Apartment King vanity,
Yeah.
tag. That's
Yeah.
not my style. That's just not how I roll. But
Yeah.
the financial freedom that I have received by
Hmm.
being in his community
Yeah.
almost 10 years now,
Hmm.
and in his mastermind.
Yeah.
We have two masterminds that I'm in,
Hmm.
has just really helped me go to the next level.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's really what you have to do in real estate. You always have to go to the next level and
Hmm.
always continue to grow.
Yeah. Something I've noticed, and it's not just real estate, it's life in general, is, every time I've had a coach, I've had hockey stick growth.
Yep.
And, so that's something that, and the other on the flip side, every time I've hit a ceiling, that's where you especially need coaching. But I think what you're saying is even better, where you're always in that mastermind, you're always looking for that growth. But I tend to notice it when I'm experiencing pain or, not progressing fast enough, but
Well, Brian, the good thing
yeah.
was with adding the second mastermind,
Hmm.
I had an investor friend
Hmm.
who was in part of my Brad Sumrock community. He had known me
Hmm.
since 2016.
Hmm.
And we had talked about capital raising. He had been on an LOI with
Hmm.
Dan and I and another individual that we tour properties with.
Hmm.
And he knew that was a little bit of a pain point for me. So he referred me to Hunter Thompson's community.
Hmm.
So I
Yeah.
went to Raise Fest and then I joined Raise Master. So
Hmm.
it's even better when you have friends that are like, I know that this is a pain point for you, and let's get rid of this pain.
Yeah.
That's even better when you have friends like that. They are so
Hmm.
priceless. And I
Yeah.
have more friends like that in my real estate communities than anywhere else really I've seen in my life,
And
honestly.
that is one nice thing. It tends to be much more collaborative than cutthroat. And by the way, I've gone to a couple of different Raise Fests, so we were probably in the same room.
Big room.
Yeah, it was a really big room. Yeah. So the resort in Phoenix and
Yep,
then
yep, that grand
the one
Arizona.
in Louisville as well, like 2 years ago. So I think I've been to the last three Raise Fests.
Okay. Well,
So
you learn a lot. He brings in,
yeah,
Hunter brings in a lot of other people
he
that you
does.
don't
Yeah.
see all the time. And he really does like to make it entertaining.
Hmm.
He does.
I haven't bought tickets. I think the next one, February or March, but
It is
it's
February.
one
Yeah,
that, yeah.
I gotta buy my tickets and I'll be going solo this time, not
Yeah.
with Dan, because he's saving some time
Mhm.
still because he's still got his aerospace W-2. So he's
Yeah.
allocating the time between the mastermind and then
Hmm.
he gets to go to Ray's Master Retreat as my plus one. So I buy a
Mm,
ticket. He's a
nice.
real estate guy. He can talk real estate. So
Yeah.
I want to have him in the room. He's not lounging by a pool. He's
Yeah.
over in the room learning stuff with me.
Yep. Awesome. Benefits to both, I mean, you don't want to lounge by the pool, but the networking, I think, is where I was
Yeah,
going
he
with
can
that way.
cover
But
more ground. And
yeah.
since he has different avatars than I do,
Hmm.
especially on social media, because he's
Yep.
like, aerospace. And then I've
Hmm.
got like the analysts or the accountants or project leads, since I've
Yep.
been a senior business analyst, people like that. So we really are addressing two different communities
Hmm.
on social media, especially LinkedIn.
Yeah. Yeah. And we were just going over, one of my partners and I were just going over our avatars, and amazingly, we both have two different avatars as well, because it's,
That's a blessing, though. That's a
yeah,
blessing.
it is. It's nice because, I mean, I connect different with different people. I'm in my 40s, he's in his 30s, and we specifically did two different avatars because of who we think we're better at connecting with, and so I have a much better chance of connecting with somebody late 40s, early 50s because I'm late 40s, and so,
Yeah,
but
Dan
yeah.
and I just kind of broke it down by
Hmm.
what you've done on the W-2 side
Yep.
because we've walked those walks.
Hmm.
And then we can just talk about how we transitioned. For Dan, it's to a side hustle with
Hmm.
a partner who's doing it
Yeah.
full time. So we
Yep.
retired somebody out. And
Yep.
for me, it's retiring myself out, and then how I did that.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about that. Let's talk about your progression once you started multifamily in 2015. We talked about the masterminds. How's that retirement plan working for you guys right now?
Well, of course, I'd retired out, and we are looking to retire Dan out in
Hmm.
a couple of years, 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
Actually, he has ended up with some unique opportunities in
Hmm.
a second aerospace company.
Hmm.
And that's how he's ended up there a little longer, because he was invited to be on a second SAP project team.
Hmm.
And he is in a place too that he has progressed on a technical corporate ladder to a point where he gets bonuses.
Yeah.
So he's in an interesting, different place. This wasn't what we thought was going down
Hmm.
after 9/11. We thought he was going to be out the door of Boeing,
Yeah.
but he had a friend at Bell Helicopter,
Hmm.
a former project lead, and said, "Hey, I know you were on this SAP project team over
Hmm.
here at Boeing, and I need you to come over here and help me out because I
Yeah.
haven't done that." And
Hmm.
so that's how all that happened. And he ended up being there longer than he thought. And now he's kind of like the
Hmm.
older guy teaching all the younger men and women,
Hmm.
just kind of emptying out his brain, his aerospace
Yeah.
brain, to help them get to the next level, because
Hmm.
Bell Helicopter got a really big contract for
Nice.
next generation of the V-22 Ospreys.
Ooh. Speaking
Yeah.
of the V-22, I've got a picture of that on my wall behind me. So,
Yeah, I know. I can
yep.
see. I've
Yep,
seen
yep,
them.
yep. And there's
I've
also
talked to flight
another.
crews on
Yeah, there's two
on the
other Bell
pad.
helicopter up there as well, and then the Sikorsky CH-53. I was a Marine, and
Oh,
funny that you
I
mentioned
was going to say, if you were, I
aerospace.
knew that you had to be a Marine, Brian,
Yep,
because Marines, they
yep.
love the Osprey.
Oh, it's
Say they're
such a
bacon.
versatile aircraft and
It really is
fast too. Oh my goodness.
really fast.
The first time I was on one when I took out, I almost thought felt like I was going to fall out of the back, but I never fell out, by the way. Funny we mentioned the aerospace because, I do real estate in Salt Lake City. There's a big Air Force base there.
Yeah,
Northrop Grumman, Boeing, all the big aerospace companies have a presence there.
right.
And one of my two avatars is aerospace executives, and so because I can talk that talk from a slightly different point of view, you know, 2 degrees in math. I was never an engineer, but
Yeah,
and then
Dan was
yeah,
had a second degree as a math major,
yeah. So part of that
and
avatar
then his MBA,
creation
and
is
I've got
yeah,
my MBA. Yeah.
nice. Yeah, I got another degree in international relations, but I don't count that one as much. It was a fun degree, but anyway, yeah. So let's keep going with your story.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
since
Hmm.
2015 to present,
Hmm.
we had invested in 18
Hmm.
multifamily properties,
Hmm.
3,507 doors,
Nice.
multiple geographical areas, so different states. And I've had about half of the portfolio go full cycle, and I
Hmm.
have had multiple properties go 3 times on the exit.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
that's why I've been so happy.
Yeah. Now, with
Another one
those
that's gonna go.
properties, what's your typical role in those properties? Are you LP only? Are you general partner? How does
Those
that
were
shake
all
out?
my LP, because I'm
Okay.
looking for co-GP in the future.
Hmm.
It's got to be the right deal,
Yeah.
because I want a around a 100 unit in the buy
Hmm.
box.
Okay.
I'd really like something that is in the latter 70s, maybe early 80s, because
Hmm.
I just want I just
Yeah.
want to dodge the boilers, and I want to dodge the
Hmm.
chillers, and I
Yeah.
want to dodge some older plumbing,
Hmm.
because I
Yeah.
had an uncle who was a plumber, so I had a lot of entrepreneurs in my family.
Hmm.
So there's just stuff I just don't want to have to
Yeah.
own that trouble.
Yeah. And in late 70s, I mean, you're also dodging aluminum wiring because that
You
was, early
are
to mid
dodging aluminum
70s.
wiring.
Yeah. And if you're late 70s, you're also dodging the lead paint and the asbestos as well. I think that
That is
stopped in
exactly
78.
what I was thinking. And that is
Yeah.
the lesson that I learned
Hmm.
from the single family, because we
Yeah.
only had one property that predated the latter 70s. And it was
Yeah.
in 1957. It was the only one that we'd have to do the lead paint disclosure.
Yeah. I've done a lot of 60s and 70s before. And I mean, lenders and insurance companies get a little skittish when you get into those as well. So good
They
reasons to
certainly
avoid
don't
them.
like any space heaters, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You
Lots
got
of things in those
backup.
60s and 70s they don't like, but
Uh,
I think that the biggest one is the aluminum wiring, which is expensive. It's you can remediate it pretty easy, but it's expensive, 1,500 a unit is typically what we're paying, 1,000 to 1,500 per unit just for electrical, which is more than I want to do on
yeah,
most projects.
that's a lot more to figure out in a capital expense budget for sure.
True, true, true. Well, cool. So lots of passive investments. Now you say looking to co-GP in the future. Tell us what you're looking to do on that one and what types of deals you're considering. You mentioned the 100 plus, you mentioned 70s and 80s. What
Mhm.
else? Geographic preferences?
Well, I really kind of like to
Hmm.
stay in either two places, one of two
Hmm.
places, because I have myself or another team member
Hmm.
that's in Arizona,
Okay.
and I've been on LOIs with him. I trust him.
Yep.
He's Air Force.
Hmm.
He's got some discipline to him. He's gone
Yeah.
full cycle, so I think that works out. And then he can flip back here to Texas for anything that we locate.
Hmm.
So, and as I said before, I've got a person that tours properties with
Okay.
me, and he's a
Hmm.
microelectronic engineer. So, I'm
Yeah.
really, in the apartment world, you're just kind
Hmm.
of surrounded by a lot of engineers. And
Yeah.
they get the math real easy.
Hmm.
And that's what kind of goes down. But I'm just looking for the right opportunity
Hmm.
at the right price. I think the initial lowering of interest rates is going to really help more for people on the refinance side.
Yeah.
I think it's going to help that, not necessarily the buyers as much, but
Hmm.
those who really need some relief
Yeah.
for their cash flow. They
Yeah.
really need that relief. So I think that's what's going to happen. And also, I wanted in a pocket
Hmm.
that really has some great amenities,
Hmm.
and I mean, I'm definitely not looking at A class. I'm going to be
Yeah.
looking at probably either C plus, B minus
Hmm.
in that pocket and in that
Yeah.
asset class in multifamily. And yeah, it's got to have
Yeah.
some grocery shopping. It can't be really in a
Hmm.
food desert, stuff like that. And also in an area where there's some potential to retenant,
Yeah.
for some upward income mobility. So, and the reason that I say that is because
Hmm.
on one of my passive investments, they're currently undergoing that because they've given some consideration to it, and they're over by the medical district in
Hmm.
Dallas.
Yeah.
And the medical district is expanding even more.
Hmm.
I think there's going to be like over $1 billion expansion, in that quadrant. And so
Yeah.
they believe that they can bring in more technologists like radio
Yeah.
tech, stuff like that. And that just really over time
Hmm.
improves and changes the nature of the
Yeah.
tenant base.
Yeah.
And so I'd like to take some pages out of their book, as
Hmm.
far as, but I have to find a property that has potential
Hmm.
for that. I do have some definite criteria, and
Yeah.
it's not just going to pop out at me.
Yeah. I like a lot of your criteria is the same thing that I look at. I do like the C plus B minus area. There tends to be more C class available than anything else, but I want to be on the top end of the C class. I don't want to be on the
Right.
bottom end of C
Yeah, I don't
class.
want to be C minus. No,
Oh no,
too
no,
close
no,
to
no.
A. No.
And but there's also like if you're putting a lot of money into properties, if you can move it from a C plus to a B minus, you're going to get a better cap rate, on the
Yeah,
sale.
you
So
really
lots
are.
of reasons for that. And then yeah, the path of progress, being able to re-tenant is huge.
Well, I
A
mean,
lot
there's a
of
certain amount anyway that
yeah.
occurs when that, but
Mhm.
why not be able to re-tenant for people who in the future
Mhm.
will have some social mobility
Yeah.
and economic mobility.
Yeah. And
Not
finding
just
the right areas is really, really
that's
helpful
really
on
key.
that one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really key. So I'm
So
going to be considering this more
mhm.
moving forward
Yeah.
than I may have in the past. And that's
Yeah.
something that I will even bring up with brokers when we're touring
Hmm.
property. You know,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts with this?
Hmm.
You know,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. One thing I do is I like looking at data for the construction permits.
Mm,
Usually the areas that are growing fast are going to have the most permits. That's one area to kind of check, kind of like the pulse of an area, just to figure out where all the permits are. But you can generally drive neighborhoods and see.
Oh, Dan and I are
Yeah,
really big at driving neighborhoods. We
yeah.
that was single family. We're really big on curb appeal, but we like to drive
Hmm.
neighborhoods for multifamily as well. So
Hmm.
typically, we will drive a property before we tour a property.
Yeah. Neighborhoods. We're looking at neighborhoods. When we do properties, we don't always. Sometimes the property tour is for broker relationships, to be honest.
Yeah, we can kind.
Um,
Yeah, you can tell that.
yeah, but if we're serious about a property, I mean, we're not just touring the property itself. We're driving rings around the property. And you made some really good points. Where's the closest grocery store? Where's the closest school? Where's the closest? Where are the things that the tenants are going to be looking for? Where's the closest, McDonald's or fast food or something like that?
You have to
So
have a little fast food quadrant no matter where you are. And
yeah,
really,
yeah.
no matter what economic class, it could be A
Mhm.
class, and you're still going to have a certain amount of fast food around.
Yeah, I mean, it
Might be
might
an
be a
In-N-Out burger, but hey,
yeah, it's an elevated hamburger is what it
it's
is,
gonna be it's gonna be gourmet hamburger. Yeah.
Yeah, but still, it's the same thing. And funny, my son came into my room last week right after I was finished with a podcast. He's like, Dad, we need to go to Chick-fil-A, and we're gonna
Mm.
drive there because if we do it on DoorDash, it always costs us about double. And I've got a very price conscious son. Actually,
Well, that's
maybe
good though.
he's watching out for me, of course. He's like, Dad, I don't want you spending too much money on my Chick-fil-A sandwich. But
I
yeah, that
love
that is
that.
something that everybody does. So, well, good, good, good. So what are you looking to do in the future? What's next for you guys coming up? Besides, I mean, what you've already said.
I already talked a little bit about
Yeah.
that OGP. We talked
Yeah.
about the buy box.
Hmm.
Well, one of the things that is coming up on the horizon is the ebook.
Yeah, nice.
Week.
Hmm.
I am down to my last chapter of 7
Hmm.
as far as our initial creation. And now we're going to be getting into editing. So I'm working with
Hmm.
my marketing team. We're going to be getting in editing. But one of the things I'm really excited about this ebook is that, and my marketing person came up
Hmm.
with this idea, and I love it. We're going to have an extraordinarily helpful appendix.
Hmm.
So not only the chapters that we cover in the ebook,
Yeah.
that's going to be really great, especially with people who are really coming into this. They're kind of new to real estate investing,
Hmm.
especially multifamily investing.
Yeah.
But it's going to be some helpful appendix as well.
Nice.
And then on the horizon, it's going to be probably latter portion of 2025.
Hmm.
I am going to bite the bullet and I am going to work with Ken Walls and launch my own podcast.
Nice.
He runs a podcast academy. I
Hmm.
want to be able to do it right. He's, going to help me with the equipment I
Yeah.
buy and, what I'm going to launch and what I'm going to say. And I have had some ideas about this because I've been
Hmm.
on several select podcasts
Yeah.
and I don't seem to run out of things to say. And I know a lot of people between my communities and my two masterminds and
Hmm.
my podcasters and people even outside of that, that
Yeah.
really people need to know them. People need to know what
Mhm.
they're doing, and they can really take some tips from a lot of people that'll
Yeah.
improve their lives, really.
Yeah, podcasting's been a lot of fun, and I didn't realize this up front. I once asked Whitney Sewell, who's probably recorded 4,000 episodes.
Mm.
I'm exaggerating a little bit, but he's in the thousands.
Yeah, but
But
but he's got a lot.
yeah, he's got a lot is the right answer. But and he made mention that he'd learned more from his podcast. He what he told me, and this is right when I was starting my podcast, is if he had zero downloads, he still would have done the podcast.
Right.
For all the money it costs to pay and produce, he says he still would have done it because of what he learned. And
Oh
I
yeah.
thought, wow.
Well, I've
That's
learned so
huge.
much just being a guest.
Yeah.
So many super talented people,
Hmm.
including
Well,
yourself,
awesome.
certainly.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is it's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun talking with people, and I learn new things every time I'm on a podcast too. So, and I get to talk with a bunch of great people. We hit podcast episode 500 last month. So this is going to be about
That is a
506-ish. Yeah.
excellent milestone. And
Yeah.
I admire you for hitting that milestone.
Thanks. I appreciate that. So, well, anyway, we're wrapping up here. Next to last question is, what advice would you give to somebody who is just starting out in the multifamily space?
The advice I would give them
Hmm.
is when it's available, I really would encourage people to check out my ebook. I mean,
Hmm.
really, because I've put a lot of time into it and I've put a lot of my experience into that as well.
Hmm.
I would also have a coach. I
Yep.
wouldn't do anything without a coach. And once you work with a coach, then you can kind of level up to masterminds and mentors in that capacity. But the first thing that I did in real estate was I had a coach.
Yeah.
I had a coach. And I even sponsor a real estate club now.
Hmm.
But it was the real estate club that one of my early coaches back from
Hmm.
2006 has organized. I mean, he's had
Hmm.
this 22 years.
Yeah.
And so it's like I'm kind of paying it forward now. And he's allowed Dan and I to have the opportunity to give a presentation on
Hmm.
syndication.
Yeah.
So you never know what opportunities coaches will give you, you know, in the
Hmm.
future. So
Yeah.
coaches.
Yeah. I think coaches are awesome. And I think I said this before we hit the record button, but I've seen hockey stick growth every time I've hired coaches,
Right?
and I'm looking at a couple of new masterminds this year for myself, less based around multifamily, but
Well, that's kind of what I did
yeah,
with my second mastermind.
yeah,
And then you also have to have time to integrate.
yeah.
So, because if you don't give yourself time to integrate what you're learning,
Hmm.
then you're kind of being a groupie. And
Yeah.
you don't want to pay to be a groupie.
Yeah, I definitely don't want to be a groupie. I mean,
You
there's
don't
not
want
a
to
lot
be
of
a
benefits
groupie.
to being a groupie in the
There's
real
not.
estate
But
mastermind.
you and I have seen those people that,
Yeah,
they really are groupies.
yeah. You got the professional conference attenders,
You
the
do.
ones,
You do the
yeah.
conference attenders
Hmm.
or the coach attenders. They're
Hmm.
going to buy in this coaching program and that
Oh yeah.
coaching program, but they're not really thinking about their strategy going in, and they're
Hmm.
not thinking about their strategy on the integration and use.
Hmm.
How are they going to be using that material
Yeah.
in direct application?
Hmm. Yeah. And that's one of the big things with coaching. And I had gotten into a couple of coaching programs early on that I didn't follow through with. But when I got into multifamily coaching for the first time, it was a big enough dollar amount that I had to sit down and think, am I going to follow through? And
Yeah, that gives you
yeah.
some incentive.
Oh yeah.
When you're paying that money, you're like, oh, ROI,
Yeah.
ROI, ROI.
At the time, it was the largest single check I had ever written, and so it was just sitting down and like, okay, if I write this check, I am committed, and I've said this many times since, if it was a $3,000 check, I may not have ever done anything with it. But since it was a $25,000 check, I had to sit down and really think, okay, am I just throwing this money away or am I going to actually do something? And paying that high ticket price, I think, was just as much a key to my success as anything else. Crazy.
But then again, the more zeros are behind,
Hmm.
that purchase, you're going to be in the room with the same people, the people
Yep.
who make that decision too.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
those are going to be people you want to be with.
Hmm.
I have never found a situation where it has been people that I don't want to be with when
Yeah.
I make those kind of purchases, either regarding coaching programs or masterminds.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Last question. How can listeners learn more about you?
Okay, well, they can go to my website because
Hmm.
I have a lot of contact information on my website too. So,
Hmm.
don't think you don't have access. But it's my website is www.excalibur, and I'm going to spell that EXCALIBRE Texas.com. So it's ExcaliburTexas.com is my website. And then you're going to be able to get some updates too about the launching of that ebook. So you're going to be able to get
Yep.
a lot of good stuff. I blog there and I'm on social media as well. I'm on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook.
Awesome. Awesome. So we'll put a link to your website in there. And I know we're connected on LinkedIn as well. At least put links
A
to your
lot of
profiles up there.
wonderful people are on LinkedIn, and a lot of people who like me, the kind of data nerds. They
Yep.
want a lot of economic data. They just want a lot of data. Yeah, they're on LinkedIn too. And
Yep.
I follow them too. So, you follow me, you'll follow people who will give you a lot of goods.
Awesome. Well, Sharon, thank you very much for coming on the show. Very much appreciate your time today.
Thank you for having me.